Hello to everyone out there. I'm James Mutulu of Nairobi, Kenya, bringing you some information and especially to those who are committed in doing God's work in this end time age. I want to give an information on the brethren, the following around here who have been going along with us. And before I get into that, I wish to give a brief history of the way this information we are normally giving has been affecting people since it began until today. If there is anything on this earth which doesn't find rest in the hearts and minds of men, it is the information that God sent Christ to bring to mankind. I believe we are all aware of the kind of struggle that it goes through in the minds of men, in the field, wherever it is placed. It has never been comfortably received, and we know why. It began with Adam. Immediately he was created, he was given this information as we see in the book of Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 and 17. God gave him to understand what he is. He taught him why he is and where he is headed to, how to live and find comfort and peace. But immediately after that, Adam was struck with the first blow, and he rejected the way he was designed by God and listened to a lie from Satan the devil, as we always know. So the gospel, or rather the message, the information which we are now giving to the world today was suppressed. Why? We know how Satan began. That is never a friend of God, nor a friend of life, for he is called a murderer and a destroyer. Knowing that men were created to rule upon this earth once they are fully developed into gods, he designed a lie that was meant to persuade man to kill himself, because he hasn't been given power to kill anybody. So he was given the power to deceive, allowed to deceive, and for man to choose whether to follow the deception or not. Satan's desire is that we accept the lie, and by not following the way we are designed, we destroy ourselves. So Adam went the destructive way. But seeing that God had a purpose of creating man, and he changes not, he followed up with Abel, who also was caught up in the struggle, and he was killed by his brother. Another portion of a dark kind of a period ensued. Then we see Enoch coming up. We don't know how exactly he fared on, but he never was killed, but he never led a smooth life, because the mind is always bombarded by Satan's suggestions against this information which God gives to all those he makes to understand. Going through the ages, we meet Job was struggling, who struggled in his lifetime until the end, as we could see him. Come to the days of Noah, a preacher of righteousness who went against rowdy, rebellious people for 120 years. Yeah. At the end of the day, he was saved and the whole generation was wiped out. And not many would go by this information. And even those of us who would go by it find a struggle within ourselves. From there, another portion ensued, and immediately after the floods, we see the descendants of Noah being swayed from this same information, the design of life, and going their way, planning to put God aside and design a self-protection kind of a thing when they went up in Genesis 11, verses 1 to 9, where they came up with the Tower of Babel against God. They decided they will go that direction and they put a protective measure so that if God tries again to destroy them, they will climb up there and escape the floods. That was Satan's doing, still swaying them from their hearts and minds, and the information was once again blocked. Come to Abraham, picked from a very dark world, and given the information again. But after some time, from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to the 10 patriarchs, Satan succeeded again in dislodging the message from their heart. And they went through a tumultuous kind of a period, bombarded in slavery, until God raised Moses, whom they continued with until sometime when they also were swayed from believing God to idolatry, worshipping pagan gods, and they were scattered all over. Lastly, after sending the prophets, after sending them one at a time, from one time to another, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all these were people whom God would inform concerning this gospel. But with time, they will stray from it and go back to the world. Brethren, the big reason being, God also created these bodies we have according to the nature of Satan, whereby we all know Romans 8, verse 7, the bodies that we have put on are against that information. So Romans 7:23, there is always that fleshly mind which is pulling us away from this true information. And it has continued like that until Christ came. Christ preached the gospel anew. It was received by a few. And then, after some time, after the apostles were all killed in one way or the other, in opposition to that message, a dark time ensued for almost 1,950 years when God raised Armstrong, as we know, who brought us the gospel we are preaching today, who brought it back to light. But after that, we don't find many people who would go by it. It took him, like, as he says, 7 years was trying to proclaim this gospel as he dined alone, him and Christ, connecting with Christ and his family for 7 good years before he could get followers. What I'm saying is, Satan has never allowed people to be comfortable with this gospel, for he knows that it is meant to Isaiah 42 and verse 7 and 8. It is meant to print some understanding in their minds, to open their eyes to discover this deception, and then quit from that darkness, from distraction to life. And because Satan doesn't want us to live, he has always tried through the pores of the flesh, through the pressures from our fellow human beings, through the needy, the fleshly needy aspects. He has always tried to make us change our minds, and not many do succeed in opposing him. So, after Armstrong, the church has tried to stand up for some while, but all of a sudden, it fell away, as we all know. Brethren, we are living in a very dark time, because after the church fell away from that truth, that information, there arose a people who have a thorough understanding of scriptures, but who sing them like music. They don't do it because they have seen something better to live by, but because they pretend with that guise of sheepskin kind of a cover, when in their hearts that same information they are proclaiming has no place. So, amid this darkened world, God has raised us up, me and you. And let me first of all thank all of you who have been given to understand this, have heard the call by God, because it is time God has begun to raise a people like He raised Armstrong, like He raised Christ, like He raised the prophets, to restore this information, because this is the information He has given to mankind, explaining what we are, how we should live to find a smooth, hopeful life, and how after developing into it, we will become gods as He is, thus becoming eternal beings with everlasting life, ruling in His kingdom right here on the earth. We are those brethren who have been risen and who have heard this call by God to rise up and blow the trumpet, to awaken people once again before the end comes. It is this mission that has brought me and you together, and which, through the proclamation that I'm doing in this area of the world, and by the support of as many of you as have also been called to work in that way of supporting, as I work in this way of proclaiming the gospel, to pray together, to encourage one another, with everyone playing their part, we are here now doing what all those who are called before us did. What I wish to have all of us understand is that this information is never for many. We hear people who talk of, like a minister will talk of having like 100 followers. Others have even claimed to have over 1,000 followers. I know you brethren out there have been approached by people saying that they want to affiliate with you, and they have 50s and like thousands of followers, and they want to bring them to you, when we very well know that this information from God is not a, a multitude kind of a thing. It's not a thing that people will move as a multitude, but one that everyone will individually heed to and follow as an individual, after which God also brings those who accept Him individually together. Something that He has done to you and me, and a reason why we are together. So when these people talk of thousands following and accepting what we may be preaching and wanting to join us, that is questionable, my brethren, because this is a call which is heard individually, and from which point then God goes ahead and makes these people to kind of get to meet each other and become a fellowship. I'm saying this because the information I'm about to give might not seem as good when we think of the organizations and those pastors and ministers who talk of having gone somewhere and have come back with 100 followers, another 50, tens of followers. Ours, brethren, is very different, because not many people will come sincerely following this information as it is. Will come because they have discovered it to be the way of life that brings peace and comfort. The majority of those who paint themselves with this message, with claiming to have the information and having believed in it, are those who are for personal gain. And we have seen it with Christ in his times, because he would have 5,000, 4,000 following with him. But the people who used to remain with him were just a handful, like 12 disciples then, who afterwards became apostles. And at the end of it, we find like 120 in the day of Pentecost. All these other thousands were what he said in John chapter 6 and verse 26, 27. They followed because they had some carnal agenda, that of having bread, satisfying their fleshly desires. And there are those who think that godliness is a way of gain. But those who hear this message and accept it as a way of life are very few. So, my point is, let's not expect to hear reports about thousands coming with us, tens of thousands coming with us. No, but let's expect to hear 1, 2, 3, 0 coming. Only these few are people who have sincerely understood this life because their eyes are opened, and who have resolved to live by it non-conditionally. For they have understood how there is no other better life than this one. For having always tried the ways of this world, tried wealth, tried accommodation among a multitude that is being accepted by it, tried being in leadership position, acknowledgement and praises by men. They have found that their hearts are still desirous of something that they don't get from those achievements. The few that come with us are people who have, like Christ said, come to him, heard this information we are preaching, and believed. And Matthew 11:28 have found rest for their souls. With this said, brethren, since we began this work some 7 years back, we have perused in and out throughout East Africa, and through the media we have gone even to the entire world: South Africa, West Africa, Central, Southeast. Even out there we have people who are following with us through visiting our web, but not many. Let me just say how far we've gone to this point, because this is why I decided to update you concerning the work that me and you are doing in this region. In the eastern side of Kenya, here in East Africa, we have 2 families of about 6 people in total who are members of our fellowship, and several others who follow with us through our website correspondently. But there are hundreds of them who hear us every time we give a message. We have contacts with through emails, we have contacts through Facebook, contacts through YouTube, we have contacts through our web, through most of the media. So there are thousands of those who hear us, who visit our web, who listen to our YouTube videos. But those who have sincerely gotten the message, or rather have been given to understand, are that few in that region. We have around 2 families who are members of our fellowship, consisting of 6 in total, with about 2 to 3 kids. Then from there, we go to the western side of the country, where initially we had so many people who would dine with us, but after finding that we are not offering financial assistances and only speaking the truth, then they reduced to about 6 families, but not the full families. In each family you find one person who sincerely is fellowshipping with us. There are those others who are with us physically, because every time we go meeting a people, you find that we meet 20 to 30 people, but we only have 6 to 7 who are genuinely with us. From there we go across the border to Tanzania, the northern side of Tanzania, where we also have in around Mwanza near Lake Victoria, we have 2 families of 6 members in total. Towards the central portion of the country, we have another 1 family. The largest congregation in East Africa is found in the southeastern side of Tanzania, around Kilimanjaro. There we have 6 families, and I'm talking of people who are genuinely striving to live like Christ. but not without the struggle in the mind. As I said, this message doesn't find rest in people's hearts. It's ever being struggled. But now here I'm talking about people who have been given themselves and they're struggling. In the central part of Tanzania, we have another one family. Down in Malawi, in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, we have one family each. Across the borders towards Central Africa is Rwanda and DRC, where we have one family each. Though some of them, like in Rwanda, we've not been in contact because of these COVID kind of restrictions. This is the much we have achieved. We don't have quantities, but we have quality people. Are people who are sincerely listening and following with what God has given us to teach them. Even then, brethren, as it is to some for an awakening, it is also to others for an information, for a witness. As you will witness, we are now in most of the media reaching the entire world with this awakening message. But as I would say, we will only have a handful of those who will sincerely follow with us. Not all those who hear are for it, because most of us are being struggled inwardly and giving up like did those who were before us. So you find that there are very few, 1 here, 3 there, 5 there, who are sincerely accepting and believing the gospel. These are said so that you don't get discouraged when you see us working vigorously, traveling here and there, posting messages, but we are not getting as many followers as the other organizations. The church, the true church of God, has never had many followers at any given time. Neither has Christ at any given moment had an organized kind of a community whereby it's like a government. It has always been people here and there who individually follow, individually accept. But whenever they come together, they are one because they have nothing to argue about. They bear the same spirit, the same information, the same lifestyle. These are the people we are reaching right now, brethren, crying loudly, sounding the trumpet to the house of Israel, the church that has gone astray, and also testifying to the entire world before Christ comes. So, brethren, let's not give up doing this work. This year's feast will see us having like 4 sites in different areas because of these COVID restrictions, and we are continuing to see more followers one by one coming slowly, gradually growing as they continue to hear the message that we are preaching. I am encouraging you to get strengthened and not to give up, because it's now that we are beginning to see the fruits. Let's keep the bombardment burning. Let's get more vigorous, and whatever ability and power that God puts in you, let's apply it and jointly reach the world and fulfill the commission for which we have been raised in this most darkest age of human history. Thank you so much, brethren, and I praise God for you for all that you have been doing and will continue doing. May the grace of God be upon you greatly. May He enlarge your figure, your strength, your desire, and blessings in every aspect, prayerful, the encouragement, supportive in all aspects of it. May it be granted you in a multiplied way. Grace and peace be with you. Let's touch bases. Bye. I love you, and I always have you in mind.